How would the Big Ten fare off in a hypothetical football Big Ten ACC challenge? Find out on Incompetent Sports Talk. Welcome to Incompetent Sports Talk with Mike Rabon and Jordan Loperena. I'm Alex Solsma. We got a lot of championship games this weekend, so we're going to dive right into that. Now, two of them we're talking about are by default. It just so happens the Big East and the Pac-10 are both going to be decided this weekend, so we're going to start with those. We'll first start with the Big East. Pitt is taking on Cincinnati, and for the first time in the history of the Big East Conference, that league's BCS bid will be determined on a head-to-head matchup on the last game of the season. So, Mike, do you got Pitt or do you got Cincy?
I've got Cincinnati. Tony Pike, Brian Kelly, that whole team has just played magnificent football all season. They've played as a unit. They've played strong. I don't see Tony Pike messing up big in this game. He's thrown 23 touchdown passes and only 4 interceptions, and that's including missing 3 games in the middle of the season. Bill Stoll and Deion Lewis at Pittsburgh, they've got a great team there. Bill Wantz has really built that program up, and it's great that they're competing for a championship, but I think Cincinnati's just got too much, and I just think they're a little better coached in the end.
Jordan?
I want to pick Pitt in this game just because all year long I really wasn't in favor of what Cincinnati was doing against some weaker teams, but I do have to mention that I just think Cincinnati is just gelling right now. You know, they're running smooth, they're firing on all cylinders, and you have to like Tony Pike being back. You know that if anything happens, if anything goes wrong, and if he's down, they've got a backup that can come back in and take care of business. And Pitt just coming off of an emotional loss last week at West Virginia. A lot of times that game's their biggest game of the year, and I think Cincinnati's gonna take care of business. I don't know if I'll be rooting for them, but I think Cincinnati will win the game.
Now, you made a little knock at Mr. Wannstedt. You said Cincinnati's the better coach team. I want to give Dave Wannstedt some credit for what he's done at Pittsburgh, because this was a guy, his first couple years were pretty rough. People are trying to run him out of town. And 2 of the last 3 years, he's beaten their arch rival in West Virginia. Last year, they went to a bowl game, and this year, he hasn't played for a BCS game. So I think Wannstedt's doing a great job. And look what him and Charlie Weiss hired at the same time. Both out of the NFL. And who's done better? I think Wannstedt's done better, and he's beaten Notre Dame the last 2 years too. So you got to think that Dave Wannstedt's doing a good job. Now, that's not to knock Brian Kelly at all, because I think he's done a terrific job at Cincinnati. But let's talk about facts. Cincinnati's beaten Pitt 1 time in school history. 1 time in school history. And Pitt has only had 9 turnovers all year. That's the 3rd best in the nation. Pitt also has the 3rd best scoring offense in the Big East and the 2nd best defense in the Big East. So we got a little balance there. Cincinnati has a great offense. They got the best offense in the Big East, but their defense isn't that good. That was proved last weekend, by the way, they played Illinois. So I'm going to go with Pittsburgh at this one. Wow. Picked them at the beginning of the year, and so I feel like I kind of owe it to this pick, but I think Pittsburgh's going to win this game. And then I think there's going to be a really interesting situation where does the BCS take a 1-loss Cincinnati team? I mean, I think Iowa fans should be rooting for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think you make an interesting point there. Pittsburgh, their balance on offense is impressive. Deion Lewis, he's one of the best running backs in the country. He's a freshman. And then you've got Doran Dixon and Jonathan Baldwin, 2 receivers that are probably going to the NFL. And I wasn't trying to knock Wannstedt. I just think Brian Kelly, when you look at how he's turned where he's brought Cincinnati from where they were. I mean, you could say same things about Pitt too, but Cincinnati's literally in the hunt for a national championship. I know they'd have to have a lot of things go their way. Mm-hmm. But they're in that hunt, and Brian Kelly may be the next coach at Notre Dame, so we'll have to see.
That's right. And actually, I remember at the beginning of the year you did say something about Butch Davis possibly going to Notre Dame, but on ESPN.com yesterday, there's some rumors that Mr. Davis might be headed over there, so we're going to have to see if those things
I may retire from this show if I get that pick right.
Now we'll go to a game that just starts in a few minutes. Oregon State taking on Oregon. It's going to be a Thursday night showdown. And those ESPN people were pretty smart at the beginning of the year because they put this game on a Thursday night, the last week of the regular season. And now we have 2 teams Oregon State could have won. If they would have won this game last year, they would have been in the Rose Bowl. Now they got the exact same situation. They got to go to Eugene and get it done. Jordan, do you think they get it done?
Absolutely not. I think it's going to be very similar to what happened last year. Oregon, just too much on both sides of the ball for Oregon State. This one, I think, could be maybe a little closer at halftime. I think last year Jeremiah Johnson went for over 200 yards in the first half rushing against Oregon State in a game where every person in Iowa City was rooting for Oregon. We didn't even have to sweat that one out past halftime. It might be a little closer, but Oregon State, they've kind of been off the radar the entire year until this weekend. But Oregon, I just think playing at home, just the way they play there, and they'll respond well and win the game. Mazzoli, he's got this game written all over him.
Mike.
Oregon State has a very good quarterback in Sean Canfield. They've got the Rogers brothers, the receiver James, the running back Jacquizz. They can be throwing the ball all over Oregon, but it's not going to be enough. Chip Kelly and his team gets it done. I like what you said. Mazzoli, he's had a fantastic year. Michael James, I think he could arguably be the best running back in the Pac-10, even competing with Toby Gerhart. I'll say it now. He's a young player. He's a freshman. I think watch out for him down the road. But Oregon at home with all that on the line, even though it's the Civil War, I know you can throw out the records. Oregon gets it done. Close. Field goal.
Okay, we want to talk about all this stuff. Oh, it's in Eugene, blah, blah, blah. But the last 2 years, who has been the best road team in the Pac-10? Oregon State. They've won 8 out of their last 10 road games. And they've also beat 7 of their last 13 ranked opponents for those games on the road. Last year, Jacquizz Rogers not even in the ball game. That's why they lost the game. And I like what you talked about, Mike, about the Beavers quarterback and Sean Canfield, because I think he's done a great job all year. Nobody's really been talking about him at all. And of course, they got the Rogers brothers on their side. And also, here's going to be the key to the game. It's who scores first. And I dug this stat out. I don't know where I got it, but in the 22 combined games that these teams have played this season, 21 have been won by the team that has scored the first touchdown. So if Oregon State scores the first touchdown, they're winning. But even if they don't, they're still winning. They're going to get the win. They're going to upset Oregon in Eugene, and all those Ducks fans are going to go home and cry because they're going to lose to Mike Riley, who's the better head coach. Mike Riley, one of the most underrated coaches in college football. I think he's the Kirk Ferentz of the Pac-10. I honestly believe that because every year he puts a quality team on the field, doesn't always get the best recruits, but he finds a way to win 9 or 10 games every year, and I really think he's done a great job over at Oregon State. Now on to the Big 12, Texas and Nebraska, and again, a game with a lot of rooting interest here in Iowa City. We're all going to be rooting for Texas. Mike, does Texas get it done?
Absolutely. Colt McCoy against Texas A&M made his case for the Heisman. I don't know if he's going to get it. This is an interesting race, but Colt McCoy, he's completed 70% of his passes every year as a quarterback. He's got the most wins for a quarterback in FBS history. He's not going to have a letdown against a Nebraska team that's been off and on all year, losing to Iowa State, then beating Oklahoma. Nebraska's defense is very good. They only give up 11 points a game, but Texas has too much Trey Newton and McCoy running the ball, and then you've got, of course, Jordan Shipley and James Kirkendall, fantastic wide receivers, and then even Nebraska even trying to move the ball against that Texas defense. I just don't see it happening.
Jordan.
Yeah, we are all going to be rooting for Texas. I think I agree with you, Mike. Colt McCoy, he's not going to let this slip out of his reach, especially after last year. Texas really felt they belonged in the national championship. A lot of people felt that way. They feel that this was their year to run the table. If they run the table, there aren't any questions. And you know what? Nebraska, they do have a good defense. One of the better, defensive teams we've seen in the Big 12 over the past years. Demukong Su, just a freak on the line. But I really think Texas is just going to overmatch and overpower Nebraska. Nebraska, you mentioned off and on. They lost to Iowa State, lost to Texas Tech. Those are letdowns, and they're going to be hyped up for this game. We might see a close first quarter, maybe a little bit close of a second quarter. Texas wins this one. Hook 'em horns.
Texas will win this game, but this is what's going to be the key is can Nebraska's defense score points or can put them in favorable positions to score points because Nebraska's offense isn't that good. I mean, you look at the Colorado game last week. I mean, two of their touchdowns. They scored 20 points, 2 of them. One of them was by the defense, one of them was off special teams. So really, this is the team that needs the defense and special teams, those kind of other factors to really get them to score points. Now, Texas offense, I think, is just far and away the best offense they'll have played all year. And we've seen, but Nebraska's playing their best football right now. The Iowa State loss was a long time ago. I mean, realistically, it wasn't, but I mean, the way this team is playing right now, they have an identity on defense. I think that's why they have a chance to win the game. If things go their way on defense, they could win, but Texas is just too good.